Hello and welcome to the X-Files podcast. This is a weekly podcast in which we journey through the X-Files TV series, which ran from 1993 to 2002. It also spanned 9 seasons, 202 episodes, 2 movies, a remake series, and a spin-off. So the X-Files is quite a lengthy journey that we are taking. In this series, we go ahead and review each episode of The X-Files. There will be spoilers, and we encourage you guys to follow along with us. I am one of your hosts, JP, hailing out of Southwest Pennsylvania, and joining me tonight is your friend and mine, Mr. Kyle Thomas, podcasting out of South Carolina.
I guess I'm mild tonight, yeah. What's up, everybody? JP can't fucking talk, so I may have to talk throughout the episode tonight.
You don't talk enough.
Yeah, I know. I do talk a lot during these podcasts, so I do apologize to the people that probably turn them off because they don't want to hear my ugly, fucking, shitty voice. But anyway, yeah, we're coming back with another episode. We're actually on Season 1, Episode 4 today, which is crazy to think about that we're already on Episode 4. I mean, I feel like I don't know about you, but it feels like we just kind of started this. So.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think that we have pretty much been doing this for a month now, which is really nuts. And that just goes to show you how if we did one a week, it would take us like 3.8 years because we're only on Episode 4 and it's been a month already. But before we get into all of that, I do want to plug a few things. First of all, you can check me out on YouTube, Doubleshotj, Kyle on YouTube at The Horror File. Also, please check out our website, which is 22shotsofmoodsandhorror.com. And the new website that we are partnered with, it's an old website. It's been around for a while, but it's new to us because we are just joining the family. And that is horrorphilia.com, where you can find tons of great podcasts. And while we're at it, how about I throw this out there? All you guys check out this new thing called the Horror Pack. Horror films delivered to your door for a monthly subscription fee. Love that stuff. Been talking about it a lot lately. Kyle, are you a proud subscriber of Horror Pack?
Alright, so here's the Horror Pack. I want to subscribe to it, and I'm going to subscribe to it. I currently have what I would call, or to put it lightly, a fuck ton of bills, and which are probably about 8 or 9, which are expensive bills, and I currently cannot afford it, but I will be definitely subscribing to it. I plan on actually paying for it for a year. Whenever my taxes come around, because I'm going to get a good bit of tax money, I believe, this year, or actually next year. So hopefully I'll be able to just pay for either the 6 month of the year up front. But I think, can't you pay for it like 3, 6, and a year or something like that?
I think so, and each one's kind of discounted. I will say, man, that it really is exciting. As long as you stay away from the spoilers on the internet, because some people already have their packs and post videos, and you get the box and you open it up and you actually get to see what's inside it at random, it is really exciting. And somebody like you who's not a big time collector, you haven't been collecting for super long, spending lots of money on it, you probably would get a lot of titles that you don't have. So far, I'm 2 for 2 in both boxes that I've received. I had 2 and didn't have 2 in both of the October box and the November box. But I will say we are not like sponsored by Horror Pack or anything. We were just talking about it before the show, and I thought that it was relevant to my daily life of horror podcasting, hearing a lot of Horror Pack lately, and I just wanted to throw it out there.
I kind of feel like I think this is a cool subject to talk about with something like this, because it's interesting to hear the different sides of like a collector's view of it versus somebody. I mean, I've been watching movies, horror or not, I've been watching cinema for a long, long time. I just started recently, within the past year and a half, really kind of hardcore collecting. I had, a decent amount of movies. It wasn't anything to be, proud of or anything, but I had some movies for years and years that were kind of locked away. I just kind of started, putting them out. I built a shelf for them, started watching more and more movies, kind of getting into the whole review thing on YouTube and doing this podcast thing now, obviously. But the Horror Pack, it seems like it's a really good, like you said, option for somebody like me who's starting out. Now, I have watched the unboxing videos for the last 2 months, and there were a couple of things in there that I already had. I feel like for me though, the benefit's going to come from the Blu-rays more than the DVDs,
Yeah.
because I do have a good bit of Blu-rays, but most of all the Blu-ray unboxings I've seen so far, I don't have those. So, I think that would be cool because you get the Blu-rays, and if you already have the DVD, it's upgraded automatically for you. So, I don't know. That seems like it may be the way to go for me, but we'll just have to see, I guess.
I agree. I think that the Blu-rays is the way to go, and it's only $5 extra. I personally just love the idea, and it's about the excitement to me. And something that I'm doing on my YouTube channel actually is I'm giving away the stuff that I have extra. So one, it drives more attention to the video when you tag it, contest or giveaway. And two, it helps people that it gives them a chance to get something that they don't own simply just for watching the video. Drives more attention to Horror Pack, all that stuff. I think it's a great thing for YouTube video makers to subscribe to Horror Pack. I really do. I think that it's a really cool idea, and that you can really utilize it in multiple ways than just I want more movies. Oh shit, I have 3 of these movies. Fuck Horror Pack. Because I have heard a few people say that. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. I get super excited when I get the box, and I'm like, anything could be in here type thing,
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where like it's like getting a gift like on Christmas morning or even on your birthday or something. You're just getting something, you have no idea what's going to be in it. The only spoiler thing that I could foresee me doing is I'm very like curious. So if somebody got the box before me and threw up the video, I would probably go look at it. I don't know. That's just how I am though. But I mean, from what I've seen so far, it seems pretty promising. I mean, it is, it depends on how you look at things. I mean, for me right now, it's a little pricey just because I don't have the money, but
Yeah.
I definitely do think that the money, the amount of money you're paying, $25 for the DVDs and the Blu-rays, I feel like it's worth it. I mean, if you're wanting to do that and you don't really care what you get, and you're wanting to get something, they had Alien, I think, on Blu-ray in the first box, which I don't own. That would have been cool to get. And I think I saw you got like The Orphanage and The Shining, and I mean, there's some really good classic stuff that's in there. And like The Shining is one of the best horror movies of all time. So if you don't have that, I don't even own The Shining. I've seen it a million times. I don't own it. That would have been cool to have. So I mean, it's one of those things that it depending on how you look at it. If you're a hardcore collector, it may not be worth it because you probably have a lot of this stuff. But if you're not, or if you're even just getting into it, it seems like it could be potentially good. So I don't know, guys, check it out. What is there like a website for it we can plug so they can go check it out?
Yeah, I believe it's just horrorpack.com. That's PACK.
Okay.
.com. So, definitely it's in its embryonic stage where they're kind of reaching out to different people trying to make deals because they have to be able to get the titles for cheaper than they're selling them for. So in order to do that, they can't just buy them off of Amazon, because then it would be a rip-off to the customer. They actually have to get in, find ways to either go directly through the distribution company or another retail outlet type thing. Probably a lot of headache, but as they grow, the more footing they get to actually, make deals with these companies. And before you know it, you could see someone like Scream Factory or Synapse sponsoring a box. So definitely support it, and I think it'll grow. Kyle, dude, so what have you been doing this week?
Oh, man, dude, this week has been hectic as hell. Like, I mean, obviously, you guys probably are going to be getting this podcast a little bit after when we obviously record it, but we're recording this on a Monday, which is November the 30th, and we just passed Thanksgiving. So it was a rough last week. I mean, I got off work last Wednesday. I went from last Wednesday night, went to the beach. I live in South Carolina. I live about 5 hours from Myrtle Beach, which is, on the coast, obviously. I have to drive the entire state of South Carolina just to get there. You have to go through Columbia, Florence, all these little counties to get there. And it is a hell of a drive. And it was me and my girlfriend. We brought my son and her 2 kids down there. So we had 3 kids in the fucking car. Which was a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you. Because kids in a 5-hour car ride, it's not their fault. It's like if you put me when I was 6 years old in a car for 5 hours, I'm gonna fucking annoy the shit out of you. So it was a hectic car ride. We got down there. I got sick on Thanksgiving morning. I did not eat anything. I was pretty much sick the entire time at the beach. We came back. 2 days later, and I had to go back to work on Sunday, which was yesterday, and work today as well. And it's just been one thing. I haven't even had any chance. I barely had a chance to watch this episode. So I did, which was awesome, but I haven't had any chance to watch any movies or really do anything for myself. So I'm kind of glad we're doing the podcast right now because I'm kind of like in my element and kind of just happy I'm doing something other than work and hanging out with kids. So I'm finally just chilling. So what's going on with you, man? What have you been up to?
Man, you know what? It's kind of been a slow week for me. I actually woke up really early on Saturday morning and watched the UFC fights from South Korea, which were on at like a weird time in the morning, like 10 a.m. or something, which is odd for a UFC show, but not odd for a show that's in, a foreign land like South Korea. Besides that, I mean, we did record our fourth and final episode in Italian Horror Month over on the 22 Shots podcast, and that went over pretty well. It was the Mario Bava episode. We did Blood and Black Lace, Black Sunday, and A Bay of Blood. Really fun stuff there. It's sad to see Italian Horror Month come to an end, but it was definitely a little more challenging watching 3 films per week instead of 1. On top of that, watching the X-Files episodes and, my other daily chores of watching movies for all my other projects and stuff. But, I would be really happy for people to check that out because I thought it was a pretty cool final to the Italian Horror Month. But besides that, man, I haven't been doing much.
Yeah, I was going to say, I finally, I try to listen to podcasts as much as I can. I try to listen to 22 Shots podcast more than any of the podcasts I listen to, obviously. But I finally got all the way through the Fulci podcast. I didn't get a chance to listen to the other ones yet. It's just, I just need the time to do it. Like, I actually listened to the Fulci podcast all the way down to the beach. I started it when I left the house. I listened to it all the way down.
That goes to show the listeners how long our podcasts are.
Yeah, it was 5. It wasn't 5 hours, but I think it was roughly around 3 hours or something like that.
It was closer to 4, I think.
Closer to 4. So it took pretty much almost the entire trip to actually listen to it. But I did listen to it. I enjoyed the Gates of Hell trilogy. The way you guys reviewed it and everything. And I kind of liked how Moods broke down some of the movies there because I was like you when I watched some of those movies for the first time, confused with certain things. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, man, I'm glad you guys did that, and it's got me looking forward to actually going back and listening to the rest of them. So
yeah, right now you're about 6 hours behind.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm pretty far behind. So
yeah, but you know what? The next one you're about to listen to, the Michele Soave episode.
Yeah.
The guy who did Cemetery Man and Stage Fright and The Church. I think you're really going to like that one. That one's really cool discussion, especially on Cemetery Man, because we actually did this thing where we ended the episode, but before that we told everybody, stick around after the end of the episode if you want to hear us spoil Cemetery Man and really dig deep into it. So that's the first time we ever did that. It's kind of a big moment, and we really dug deep into it, really discussed what the meanings were, what we thought of it. So I think that people will really like that, including you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. I mean, I think I actually dug a little bit into her episode. Is that a chick or a guy?
It's a guy.
Guy. Okay, it sounds like a chick, but I delved a little bit into that episode with the Cemetery Man stuff. So really looking forward to it. It's just I gotta find the time to do it. So hopefully that'll be soon. But yeah, guys, we're gonna go ahead and jump from what we're doing into hopefully what you guys want us to do, which is talk about this season 1, episode 4 of the X-Files, titled Conduit. JP was like, "How do you say this word?" Conduit. It's kind of a weird word. But to kind of get into this episode, we'll just kind of jump right into it.
Directed by
Daniel Sackheim. He actually directed one of the last. I want to say it was the second episode that we covered. He was directing one of the.
Yeah, he directed Deep Throat.
Deep Throat. Okay, so and it also originally aired October 1st, 1993. So.
The Halloween season.
Yeah, the Halloween season was among them when they started this. So, but this episode was also written by two people that haven't written an episode yet. It was Alex Gonsa and Howard Gordon.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like these two have really done too much like in our genre afterwards, which is horror. I think some of them like co-wrote some Buffy episodes and stuff like that. But besides that, it doesn't seem like they really went on to do big things.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify, last week or the last episode, I did say I want to say it was the last episode. I did say the writers. I want to just clear this up.
He was so
I
fucked
I
after
was
that
I was I
show.
was I was honestly really mad because I try to delve, just so everybody that's listening knows, I try to delve into these episodes very very hard, and I guess I just didn't really delve into the writers very well. The writers from the last week's episode, which was, what was last, Squeeze, I believe.
Squeeze, yes.
They do a ton of episodes in this season and other seasons.
Yeah,
And
and Kyle was like, I feel like an idiot because these guys have done like so much X-Files stuff, and I said I never really heard of them before.
yeah, they do like a ton of stuff, and they actually, I think you said that they were doing one of the newer episodes for the new season.
Yes.
So I do apologize. Let's go ahead and scratch what I said. Let's go ahead and say that, yeah, those guys from the last episode, the writers, they do a lot more in this season, plus other seasons, plus the new season that's coming out. So, but yeah, Alex Gonsa and Howard Gordon wrote this episode. Conduit. We'll kind of go ahead and start getting into it.
Well, before you do that, Kyle, I actually wanted to bring something up, and I was thinking about doing this from the very beginning, but I decided not to, and then like maybe I thought that it would be kind of interesting. So the series premiere, which was the pilot back in 1993, actually had 12 million viewers, which is really strong. And then the second episode, Deep Throat, had 11.1 viewers, and the third episode, Squeeze, had 11.1 viewers as well. That's in millions. I did think it was of note that this episode actually dropped down to 9.2 million. So either one, it was coming off of Squeeze, which maybe people didn't really care for Squeeze that much, so they decided to skip out on the next week. Or two, it just was random. Or three, the previews didn't look that good. Could be a number of things, but I thought that it was interesting that there was a little bit of a drop off there.
Yeah, it is. That is interesting, and
according to Wikipedia.
Yeah, that is interesting, and that's a lot of viewers, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know how many viewers. I'm sure there's a ton. I mean, if you compare something like this to a show like Walking Dead nowadays, obviously you're going to have a fuck ton more viewers for Walking Dead. But I mean, I think for back then, for a show like this, coming off the market, something called the X-Files that doesn't really have a lot of, it doesn't really have a following. Nobody knows really what it is. It's going to have to gain ground. So you probably have a lot of people that started watching it curious, and then they saw a few episodes and they're like, I don't want to watch this anymore, and they kind of dropped off. So I think that maybe this was around the episode maybe they started dropping off. Maybe they did see Squeeze and they were like, that's stupid as fuck and we're not watching this shit no more. But, then again, maybe it could have just been just random happening. So I don't know. We'll have to kind of delve a little bit more into that as we go along with the season. I'd be kind of curious to see, how we end up, how many viewers we end up at the end of the season.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and I'll keep coming back with that every week, and we'll kind of discuss if there was any like significant change or anything. So let's actually get into the episode. I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and kick it off. So this episode, like I said, season 1, episode 4, Conduit, kind of starts out with kind of a familiar. Look to it. You kind of start out with some people that are out camping in the woods. The scene opens up. The first scene opens up with people sleeping by a fire in the woods while they're camping. So you see this little kid, this girl. There's this fire going. It's by the lake, and there's a camper. The kind of zooms out, kind of zooms by the people that are laying on the ground by the fire, and it goes into the camper. And there's this. It looks like the kid's mom is asleep or laying in the camper. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this earthquake starts happening. Just the camper starts shaking. The ground starts kind of shaking, and she's kind of just startled, like very startled. She's like, starts screaming basically. And then there's a bright light. She looks up and there's like this just bright light. You can see the bright lights outside of the camper, kind of coming into the camper. And then you hear the little boy that it showed before it zoomed into the camper. You hear him yelling outside, for his mom. He's like, "Mom, help! Mom." And the mom gets up. The earthquake stops. She gets up. She goes to touch the camper door and gets burned. Her hand gets burned by the door.
Yeah, which is a pretty cool scene. It's like It's funny because she instantly just grabs an oven mitt and puts her hand in it and opens the door that way. But
Yeah, and it's honestly that this aspect of the episode pay very close attention as we kind of go along because the burn, the not just her burn or not really her burn, but the heat that's coming from this part of the episode. It's really kind of it goes along with the rest of the episode. So she gets burned
prevalent.
by the yeah, so she gets burned by the door, and she finally, like JP said, she opens up the door with the oven mitt. And the little boy's like, Ruby's gone. Ruby's the older sister who was laying with the little boy. And she's just completely gone. And she's like, Ruby's gone. He's like, Ruby's gone. Ruby's gone. And then it kind of just, it shows the mother and she's very concerned looking. She's looking up at the sky and it just cuts to the intro of the show.
Yeah, so that's our opening scene, which I'm not certain, but I imagine that's how most episodes are gonna open from here on out. It's gonna be like a kind of a big shock at the beginning, and then it's gonna go into the actual intro, I assume.
It is, yeah. Pretty much almost every season's like
Yeah,
that.
that's a good format. I mean, it instantly gets you into the episode because you're like, okay, what are we dealing with this time?
I feel like that's a missing format in my opinion because I feel like the X-Files made this work for 9 seasons. So obviously this was a very, very highly sought after, very highly looked at franchise. I mean, they spawn movies. They're coming out with a new season. I feel like that's kind of a lost like concept. I mean, even with Walking Dead, let's take Walking Dead for instance. They do somewhat do that. But if you look at Walking Dead, most of the episodes that come on for something like that just show like a weird thing that happens. It doesn't leave you with like a cliffhanger feeling almost. Like every episode of the X-Files for me always left me with a cliffhanger. I was like, okay, I gotta watch and see what the fuck happened, at the beginning of this episode.
You know what show I think did do that a lot?
What's that?
Lost.
Yeah, Lost did do that a lot. I think the reason why is because of J.J. Abrams, because I think J.J. Abrams had something to do with the X-Files. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if he wrote or directed an episode of the X-Files, but I want to say he had something to do with that. So we'll look at that later on in the series. But to kind of get back into the episode, we want to jump back into the episode because we don't want to ramble on. But so it cuts to the credits. The X-Files theme plays. Obviously you're scared shitless. You're 10 years old. You're laying down. You hear this song playing. You're like, what the fuck? But jumps back into the episode. And it shows Scully basically getting grilled by the FBI head or the guy that runs the FBI or one of the head guys at the FBI. And basically he's giving Scully orders talking about the girl basically that got abducted by aliens. He's basically saying that Mulder wants to put in a request to go
Basically
investigate.
turn this case into an X-File and have it in full out investigation, but there's not really any evidence. Somebody's daughter disappeared. Like it's not really it's like a local law enforcement type case. It's not like the FBI type case.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically, Mulder's only reason for going after this case was because he has a tabloid. And if you guys aren't familiar with tabloids, it's basically like one of those fake newspapers you see at a grocery store that have like Obama is an alien or something, and it shows like a fake picture of Obama as an alien. And it's one of those he has, and it's talking about the disappearance of Ruby, basically. And he went to the FBI, department, and it was like, I want to investigate this. And they were wanting more information, and that's all he gave them. So, the FBI guy is basically grilling Scully, saying, we can't go off and let you guys pay for you guys to go here, if this is all Mulder wants to go off of. And Scully's very confused on, why Mulder's wanting to do this.
Yeah.
So she actually goes and confronts him about it. So,
well, first, actually, the investigator, the FBI head or whatever, asks Scully if she knows about Mulder's sister, and they kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah. So they kind of bring up Mulder's sister a little bit, and if you guys are familiar, it's kind of hinted at Mulder's sister a little bit already in the prior episodes, where Mulder kind of talked about his sister with Scully a little bit, letting her know that she disappeared, and there was no trace of her. Obviously, Mulder thinks this is an alien abduction. Scully is obviously very, skeptical about it. She's like, it's probably just an abduction. But the FBI agent doesn't want the basis of them going out there because Mulder wants to do this because of his sister, basically, just kind of find out what happened to this
Yeah,
Ruby
because
girl.
that's not really like that's not a good enough
It's
reason
not a
for the
legitimate reason to.
FBI.
It's not a legitimate reason for the FBI to pay for two people to get on a plane and go investigate a basically disappearance or kidnapping. That's not really an FBI matter. That's kind of a local matter. So Scully kind of gets into it, kind of starts thinking about it. She goes down and kind of confront Mulder about it. He shows Mulder shows Scully a file on his sister, and she or basically the FBI guy shows a Scully a file on Mulder's sister. And he was basically before she went down and talked to Mulder about it. He basically asked Scully, like JP said, if she knew anything about it, and Scully said that she knew a little bit. That she saw, Mulder saw bright lights, and the sister got taken. So then Scully states that Mulder had like a hunch. Basically Scully states that Mulder's hunch from the tabloid is not credible. She's pretty much saying at this point that she doesn't think that there's enough credible information here in this tabloid to warrant the FBI go down there. And she tells Mulder that.
and she's pretty much right. But as we know, Mulder, come on, it's Mulder. He's obviously got more than that. And then he goes into a little bit of how this certain location is actually a UFO hotspot. He then pulls out a paper. He shows that there was a girl there who had seen something, and it just so happens that this same girl is now the woman who lost her daughter. So then it becomes like that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more entwined.
There was an issue with so the mother's name from the first scene is Darlene Morris. So basically Mulder shows Scully that Darlene Morris is kind of like a common person with alien abductions. So obviously the Ruby, her daughter, got abducted in the beginning of the episode. Darlene Morris back in 1969 it looks like
67.
Was it 67? Okay. Back in the 60s, Darlene Morris had a kind of a run-in when I think she was in the Girl Scouts.
Yeah, she was a Girl Scout, and she witnessed a UFO sighting. And now, she's an adult, and at the same place, this lake, she has another UFO sighting. So that's kind of weird. That definitely intrigues Scully right away, and she's like, okay, I'm down to check this out with you, Mulder, because that is a little odd. And honestly, that whole scene, the way it played out, was pretty cool, because the way he revealed, like, what did you say her name was?
Darlene Morris.
Yeah, he's like, well, that little girl was Darlene Morris or something. Like, that was creepy to me.
Scully looked very, like, when he showed her that, she was, like, very, like, wow, like, he's done his research. Like, Scully always finds a way, you can tell, with, especially with Gillian Anderson's character, she plays her very well, because you can tell how she was written. She's always, very, she's like, wow, everything Mulder does, she's like, wow, like, I can't believe he proved me wrong, basically, or he made me think a little bit differently than I'm thinking. So I always thought Gillian Anderson did a great job, because you can tell how these characters are written and kind of they're supposed to perform, and you can just tell that her character is always just like, wow, like, I cannot believe that. I thought I was going to come down here and he was going to say some bullshit about aliens, or just say some weird conspiracy, and he's actually showing me facts here, and I can't believe it, kind of deal. So. Kind of get back into it here. Mulder and Scully travel to Darlene Morris's house. They go to the house. They ask to talk to her about Ruby's disappearance. When Mulder and Scully walk into her house, the little boy, whose name is Kevin, which is Ruby's little brother, who was there, the one yelling for his mom the night that Ruby got, supposedly abducted.
The night that she vanished.
She vanished. Kevin is acting kind of odd. He's just kind of sitting there, he's sitting at the table drawing. Darlene asks him to say hi to Mulder and Scully. He does not say anything whatsoever. He doesn't even look up. Or at least I don't remember him looking up. I remember him just drawing. Darlene kind of blows that off, and she looks over at Mulder and Scully, and she's like, I can't believe the FBI finally came. I've been saying over and over and over, kind of yelling my story out, and I knew somebody would come, and you guys came. And Darlene says this one line that kind of just like looks at. You can tell Mulder when you look at Mulder, in the scene, that he's kind of like, wow. She says that they took her. And right when she says that, Mulder just kind of looks at her and he's like, they. So kind of just indicating, quote unquote, aliens took her. Um, and then she indicates, starts talking about how she was there in 1967. And then she, was at the same campsite or around the same campsite that her daughter was taken. Or it was a similar area. It was the same camping ground, but similar area.
It's the same
for the daughter.
lake.
Same lake, yeah. It's that I can't remember the lake. I wrote down that in the notes later on, but
it's Okoboji.
Okoboji, yeah. There we go. It's kind of a weird name, but
yeah.
So Mulder kind of goes over to Kevin in this scene, and this is a really, really kind of like crazy scene. He goes over to Kevin, kind of kneels down, and starts talking to Kevin. Kevin's sitting on the floor drawing, and he's like, hey. Can I talk to you about what happened to your sister? And Kevin's like, no. And that's all he says. And doesn't even turn around to acknowledge Mulder whatsoever. And then Mulder was like, can I see what you're drawing? And Kevin kind of leans back and gives him the paper or the pad, and it's a bunch of ones and zeros. Exactly before they even said what it was, I knew what it was because I'm a computer science major. It's binary code. It's just like a whole piece of paper filled with just like ones and zeros, binary code. And then he points at the TV that he's sitting in front of, and the TV he's sitting in front of is like one of those old, tube TVs.
Oh, one of those old '90s TVs.
One of those. Well, at the time of this show coming out, it probably was a brand new TV, but it was like an old tube TV, and it had static on it. If you went to like channel 2, you would see nothing but static.
Yeah.
It was that kind of deal. He points at the TV and says, "It's coming from there." And Mulder kind of is like, it's coming from there, and kind of gets confused. So then it kind of fades off. They leave Darlene's house.
Go to a local sheriff.
You go to the local sheriff's office.
They want the code to be analyzed, and they also find out that Ruby was just a juvenile delinquent, and she most likely ran away. That's what the local sheriffs are telling them.
I kind of felt like the way they were talking about her, like they kind of were just talking like she was a whore. Like she was.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She was like this big slut of the town.
She was a juvenile delinquent, that like a bad kid, wrong side of the tracks. Probably fucking every dude in town.
Exactly. That's the big thing. Like the sheriff who was like, you go to a sheriff in a town, you expect some kind of professionalism. I didn't feel like this sheriff here was very professional whatsoever. Especially
he's a small town sheriff. That's how they all
that's
act.
True. And he was kind of like a Barney Fife in a way. And he pretty much just like JP said, just basically said Darlene or Ruby was a whore. She was something bad was going to end up happening to her anyway. I'm not surprised this happened. And he basically told Mulder and Scully that there's no evidence of a kidnap. No evidence whatsoever of any kind of kidnapping or any kind of foul play, basically. And he thinks, in his mind, you could tell he doesn't say it, but he's thinking that she just ran away, basically. Yeah. So then they're like, okay, whatever. Obviously Mulder and Scully are not going to listen to a small town sheriff. So they leave the police station, go outside,
There's a note on the car, which says, "Follow me," across the street. They meet this young girl named Tessa, who says that she and Ruby were friends. Ruby had gotten pregnant and was planning to run away with her boyfriend, Greg Randall.
Yep. So basically, they, like JP said, they meet her at the library. She's talking between some books. She's acting really super sketchy. And like she said, Greg, the boyfriend, who's, I guess, I'm assuming is some really kind of redneck or biker dude. He basically, really trashy guy is what to kind of describe the guy as. He basically got Ruby pregnant and took off with her, more or less, is kind of what she's hinting at.
Mm-hmm. They go to a bar where they believe Greg works. He's not there. They talk to, I believe it's his boss, right?
Yeah, so basically talk to a guy and I've seen that guy that's the boss. I've seen that guy in other movies, but that was another thing I meant to look up that guy because he's been in a lot of stuff. I want to say he's a wrestler, like in real life, but he's just this big, like, biker dude who has long hair, curly hair, and he is basically saying that he hasn't seen Greg in, like, 3 weeks. If you see him, tell him he's fired, kind of deal. And then Mulder, this was a really, really cool scene. Mulder, they're about to walk away, and he sees that the guy has a tattoo of a UFO on his arm. And he's like, "Hey, you don't believe in that kind of stuff, do you?" And the guy's like, "What do you mean I don't believe in this kind of stuff?" He's like, you don't believe in those little flying saucers, the little gray aliens, do you? And he's like, oh well, I bet if you go up by Lake, what was it, Obataka or something, the lake that Ruby got abducted at,
Okobogi.
Okobogi, that you will think that they exist. And he was like, okay, whatever. And the biker guy, or the guy that's behind the bar, he pulls back his hair, and his ears like all burned off, basically. Like it was like almost like it wasn't there. So pretty much at this point, kind of backtrack just a little bit. When they went to the police station, like JP said earlier, Mulder brought that binary code, or that piece of paper that had all the binary on it, to the police station to have it analyzed. He faxed it into the FBI to have it analyzed. Well, all of a sudden they go back to their hotel. It kind of fast forwards a little bit after they leave that bar, and the FBI or the NSA, two guys that Mulder knew and Scully knew, kick in their hotel door and want to know where Mulder got the document from, or AKA the drawing that Kevin did. And Mulder's like, I don't know where it came from. I have no idea, kind of denying it because he doesn't want to tell them. And they say it's basically that it could be a threat to national security unless he tells them. And then he, Mulder's like, well, what is it? What is it? What is the big deal about this drawing, about this binary? What is the big deal? And they say that it's like, whatever they decoded from it was like, the schematics to like I guess like a rocket or something. Do you remember what they said, what that was? I don't
remember. It was probably just some sort of, secret agents type defense department type
that's
shit.
what it was. It was the defense. It was some kind of Defense Department thing where it could have been. It had something to do with rockets or like missiles or something like that.
Satellites.
Like satellites, where it could have been a threat to national security. So pretty much at this point, Mulder kind of denies it. He doesn't want to tell them where it comes from. They find out,
and of course Scully is like, "Come on, Mulder, could be a threat to national security." And he's like, "From a little kid."
Yeah, he's like, "How is this 8-year-old going to be a threat to national security?" Which makes perfect sense. How is an 8-year-old any kind of threat? But
so they actually take the family. I forget the Morrises.
It's the more. Let me pull up here. What was Darlene's last name?
Yeah, they
Darlene
take
Morris.
them into custody, the Morrises, and then Mulder notices that out on a roof of their RV, he sees sort of this, I guess, like burnt, charred roof.
So they're like kind of like they raid Kevin's house. They take everything. They take Kevin and Darlene with them. Mulder goes back into the house. He's looking around, looks outside, and sees the camper that Darlene was staying in when Ruby got abducted. And the top of it's completely got like charcoal, like burn, like black stuff all over the top. So he goes down and puts a ladder on top of it and goes up and kind of feels it in his hand and smells it. What it kind of looked like to me was like if you take like charcoal, like grilling charcoal, and like crush it up. That kind of looked like what the top of it was. It was just like a bunch of like ash. And he's like kind of like looking at it like what the hell could this be? Pretty much the FBI they go back to like the FBI or go back to the police station, and pretty much what they find out what Kevin was writing in binary was like weird little random things. So they pretty much explain the police officer, I'm pretty sure it was the police officer, explains to Mulder and Scully that the binary code, when they run it through their database, comes up as like random little things like DNA fragments and Shakespeare sonnets and random little things of music. So it's like almost like Einstein shit, like he was kind of writing down or getting code from. So
yeah, I kind of took it as that it was just like important pieces of like
history, almost.
Or like our culture, or like important pieces of human existence.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of what, like, because I mean, binary, when you run binary code through a database, it really can come up with anything. But apparently, the things it was coming up with were like JP said, like important pieces of our, our existence, our history, like Shakespeare sonnets, obviously, and DNA fragments. I mean, that's stuff that's like very, very.
Yeah, it's stuff that you would think if you would want to share with maybe people from light years away on another planet.
Exactly.
It would be like that's like the most important, interesting things. That's what it's basically what makes us,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, if aliens were to be giving these signals out, it kind of makes sense that this is the kind of stuff that they would be either receiving or giving back. So pretty much at this point, Mulder just thinks that the key to this whole thing
Is
is
it Lake
Kevin.
Ogobogie?
Yeah, well, Lake Ogobogie and Kevin. He thinks that Kevin has seen something. When Ruby got abducted, Kevin saw something, and he's almost like the key to this whole thing, and as well as the lake. And Darlene at this point wants nothing to do with the FBI because they got taken away and their house got raided. So she pretty much tells Mulder and Scully, "Leave my kid alone. Just leave us alone. We don't want anything to do with you," kind of deal. So at this point,
and you get the sense that maybe that somebody had kind of gotten to her and said like, "Hey, you need to stay away from them people," type thing.
I personally don't think anybody got to her.
You don't think so?
I think that she was just being a mother, and she felt like she was kind of scared that her kid was going to get taken away, and she kind of panicked and just doesn't want anything to do with it if it's going to require another child being taken away from her.
So you don't think there was any type of threat? Like nobody threatened her? Like, hey,
I really don't know because it doesn't really explain it. But if
I kind of got that vibe.
I mean, if I was to guess, I would just say she was being a mother. But at the same time, you got this whole behind the scenes thing with the X-Files where you got like the higher up FBI agents, like the cigarette smoking man that could have said something to her. People like that. So you don't know. It could have been.
Well, I just feel like because they took her, and then it's like she's almost like extra resistant after they meet him after they took her. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I can see where you're. I mean, I can definitely agree with that. I mean, it's kind of left up to the users or the watcher's perception, but viewers' perception.
So after this, Kyle, they go out to the lake Ogobogie where they discover sand that had turned into glass. Kind of at a burnt tree line, and that indicates that there must have been some serious ass heat going on here.
Yeah.
Then they see some wolves, right?
Yeah. So kind of go back to the sand. Mulder kind of looks at Scully and he's like, hey, what temperature do you think sand turns into glass at? And it's like 2,000 degrees or something, 2,500 degrees. So obviously, two things come to mind right there is you got Kevin who's outside when this is happening, so he's exposed to the heat. Plus, the sand is turning to glass and the tree line's burnt. So it's kind of odd. And then Mulder sees this wolf and just kind of chases it into the woods because the wolf seems very, anxiety. The wolf seems like it has very bad anxiety. It's kind of pacing around. It runs into the woods. He chases it. And there's a group of wolves huddled around this kind of rock face. It looks like a bunch of rocks kind of stacked together. Mm-hmm. They start kind of pulling up the rocks, and they find out that it's actually just a shallow grave, for a person that was buried there. Yeah. And it ends up being Greg, which was Ruby's boyfriend. Basically he's buried there. He's dead. And they find a note in his wallet that looks like, there's some handwriting on it. It's like for a doctor appointment. They go and compare it with some of the writing that Tessa did earlier, the one that talked to them in the library.
The one that left the note on their car. That's why they have the note, by the way.
Exactly. And they compare it, and it is the exact same handwriting. So they bring in Tessa, and they start kind of questioning Tessa. Mulder's actually
she's under interrogation, and Mulder is grilling her, and he starts, getting into like the very passionate, like no, you went up there and you killed Ruby, you killed her, and then basically tricking Tessa into saying Ruby wasn't even there because Tessa did not kill Ruby. But then that basically admits that Tessa was there and that she killed Greg.
Yeah, pretty much Greg. And, this whole time he's grilling her, it's a very kind of cool scene because you kind of get to see Mulder out of his character a little bit, because he's kind of calm and collected most of the time, and he's yelling at her and, and she kind of starts admitting that, she was jealous because, Ruby was seeing, Greg, and that, Scully thinks that Tessa this whole time is lying, that, there's no way that this all went down like this. Mulder doesn't think so. He thinks that Tessa's telling the truth, and he's kind of questioning why Scully doesn't believe her. And really at this point, Scully thinks the case is solved. She's like, okay.
Yeah, because she got caught in it, basically. She was mad that, Tessa, or Tessa was mad that Rob or Greg liked Ruby,
yep.
And that was her motive. So Ruby's still missing, but they figure Tessa probably murdered her too because she killed Greg, and Mulder actually believes Tessa that she did not kill Ruby, because he feels like what did she have to lose to deny that one? You know,
Yeah.
she pretty much got caught and admitted to the Greg one. Why would she then go ahead and still deny the Ruby one?
Plus, also, I think a lot of it has to do with Mulder not believing her because, I mean, you got the tree line and the camper being
Yeah, of
burnt,
course,
and
Mulder's brain
Kevin.
is still like stuck, fixated on his sister and UFOs, and not just, oh, this was a murder case, you know?
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, at this point, Scully wants to go home. I mean, she's pretty much done with this investigation, but Mulder does not want to, and he's kind of, she pretty much tells him, she's like, if you're going to continue this investigation because of your sister, you need to stop. And he looks at her serious as fuck, and it's pretty much like, you can go home or you can come with me, pretty much kind of deal. He pretty
Yeah.
much gives her an ultimatum at this point. And she obviously goes with him, as usual. At this point, they go back to Darlene's house, and Darlene, they can't find Darlene or Kevin there. The door's wide open. There's binary pages all over the floor.
Yeah, it's like if you took like a full piece of paper, like a printer sheet, and then there was binary code all over it, and then you lined up like 4 across and then like 4 down.
Yeah,
And it's just all code.
it almost looked like a mural or something like that made out of paper. But they start looking around the house for
Scully
them.
walks upstairs and
Yep.
she notices something and she tells Mulder to hurry up and check it out. They
Yep.
look over the banister and there is actually what the binary code was, and it all kind of created like a face out of the paper, out of the binary code. You couldn't see close up, but if you stand far enough away, you can see that the image is, very clear.
Yeah, it's the image is Ruby, which is the girl that got abducted, the sister. So it looks like whatever images that Kevin was getting from the TV, he wrote them all down, all the binary, and they ended up being a face of Ruby, which he put in the floor. Mulder and Scully went upstairs and looked down and saw it, and it made a mural basically of Ruby. So at this point, Mulder is like, I know exactly where to go to find him. He goes back to the lake. And he spots
Which
the
is
camper.
one thing that I feel like that was the only thing in this episode that I was just like, okay, like why? Like why now go back to the lake?
Well,
Just,
I feel like
what did
that's
that
the only
picture
place they could
indicate?
really go.
But still, like why not go to, like, it just seems like it comes out of nowhere, to be honest.
I just felt like, they weren't there. The door was wide open. There's a picture of Ruby laying on the ground. I mean, it kind of just gave.
Okay, but why go back? Why not go to the lake before they seen the picture?
Like, go to the lake before?
Yeah.
I guess that Mulder, with everything that went on with Tessa, he wanted to go over to Darlene's house and I guess kind of talk to her about like Ruby's involvement with Greg, maybe, or maybe even with Tessa. After they kind of grilled her, and maybe that's why they went over there, maybe to talk to Darlene about it. Maybe they didn't even go over for Kevin, and they ended up finding that. That does. I can see how you would think that. I mean, it does bring up a good point. I mean,
It's like they're almost indicating that like they see this face and it's like, and it's like she must be at the lake, like it's just. I get that it's just supposed to be a moment, like it's just supposed to be a cool moment, but there's no real indication to like why they're going back to the lake now. It's just because it moves the story along, but it is kind of a little frustrating when it is just like it just feels out of nowhere. It's like they could have went to the lake at any time throughout the entire episode. They've been there once, I understand, but why now all of a sudden does it seem like this time going to the lake is going to lead to something big?
I kind of feel like they just came from the lake though, because they found the body of Greg. They went, went to grill Tessa about it, basically back at the police station, which was probably the same night. And then they're going back to the lake. I think it's all happening within a day. I think that maybe this is all happening within a day period. So
yeah, and that's not the only thing I'm saying though. It's that this time when they're going to the lake, it seems like even the characters react as if it's going to be, it's like the big time. Like, I know, let's go to the lake. Something big is going to happen. It just feels bigger. I know it's very nitpicky and it's not a huge problem or distraction or anything, but it is just something. It's just something that happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, I guess that, maybe this is why the
It's just
writers.
TV writing, dude. That's
Yeah,
all
it's
it
TV
is.
writing. I mean, it comes down to like, hey, they got to fill 45 minutes of a show, so they're kind of
Well,
like,
at
oh, we got to
that
start
point, they're
wrapping
probably
up.
running out. Yeah, they're running
Yeah,
out of time,
we
and
got to kind of start wrapping up here. Let's go back to the lake and just kind of finish it off. Which, by the way, going back to the lake was a good idea for them. So
yeah.
they
So
kind of
I'm the
had the right
dumbass
idea
here.
there. No, I mean it's one of those things that's left up perception again. So, but they go back to the lake. They spot the camper. It's sitting there. There's nobody in the camper. It's kind of just off to the side of the road. Darlene, they start hearing yelling. Darlene's laying in the woods, and she states that she couldn't keep up with Kevin because Mulder's like, "Where's Kevin at?" Scully stays with Darlene. Mulder kind of runs after and starts trying to find Kevin. And all of a sudden, there's a bright light in the woods. He sees Kevin way off in the woods. There's a bright light, and he kind of runs after Kevin, trying to keep up with him or catch up to him. Kevin's really just walking normally. I don't know how Darlene can't keep up with him, but he's just kind of wandering around. And all of a sudden, he gets caught up with Kevin, and all of a sudden, you see these bright lights, and they turn into motorcycle lights. And all these bikers just kind of come like pouring out of the woods. Mulder grabs Kevin and kind of shields him from getting run over. After these bikers kind of like just drive by, all of a sudden out of nowhere, Scully, you hear a yell from Scully, and she yells for Mulder to come over, that they found Ruby. And they go back to, Mulder and Kevin go back to Scully and Darlene, and Ruby's just laying on the ground there, unconscious, just laying there basically, and Mulder just goes and gets help.
Yeah.
So
Then we
this is,
see. Well, good.
no, I was just going to say this kind of wraps up the episode. You
Yeah.
see them in the hospital. Ruby's laying in a hospital bed. Mulder's kind of grilling her about what happened.
Yeah. So this is the part where this is one of the reasons why I feel like the mother was either told something, because she's really adamant about Mulder not questioning her daughter anymore. And even Mulder says something. Let me back up a little bit. Ruby is in the hospital. She looks a little battered. When she is questioned about her experience, she says that sort of like they took her, or like an unnamed, she's not very specific at all. Mulder, of course, thinks that it's aliens, but to any normal person, it could just seem like bikers. Like just bikers had her and maybe like beat her up or raped her or something. You never know. And then the mother refuses to let Mulder ask her any more questions. And even what I found interesting was that he said, well, someday she's going to remember and she's going to want to talk about it, and it's going to be important to what she says. And the mother says, important to who? And that's why I understand that it could be that she's just protective, but I also feel like that being that he said like in the future, and she's still just like, not happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I can see your point to it, but at the same time, I guess I guess me being a father in general, I guess I can kind of understand where that could just be coming out as a mother. She's just tired. Like she's sick and tired of having to explain herself, and then she's sick and tired of having to deal with the FBI, and she's sick and tired of her kids being brought into all this bullshit. I mean, she, as she said, she wants closure to the situation, but at the same time, I think she just maybe is just tired of all of it. Like maybe she just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. I mean, it is a possibility, like you said, that they could have got to her and been like, you don't need to talk about this anymore. If they come to you, if Mulder and Scully come to you, just deny it. Just tell them to go away. Just if you don't do it, we're going to hurt your family. It could be like that. But there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of thoughts on what it could be, why she could be acting the way she is. You can tell that she's very, just done. I mean, the character, the woman that plays Darlene, you can just tell she's very tired in the face. She's just like over it, like she hasn't slept in days. She's just sick and tired of it all, of dealing with it, of explaining it. So,
see, the only thing that I have to say also with that is that I understand that if it was just a regular situation, like the average, the normal experience, like the normal parent would react like that. But the thing is that she not only saw some weird shit when she was a kid as a Girl Scout, but then she saw weird shit again. A fucking door handle like burnt the fuck out of her hand. Like I feel like that's no longer a normal experience. So I feel like it would be like stupid to just resist and just be like, no, everything's normal, nothing happened. Like, so I don't know, but you could be right. You could be right that,
Yeah,
that's what they were kind of going with.
I think they were just kind of going with like, they may have been hinting at what you're saying. I mean, I maybe just didn't get the hint. I mean, it could be either or though. I mean, they didn't. I felt like the writing in this episode, which we'll kind of get into when we get into our thoughts, was could have been a little bit better. But as far as the speculation goes, I think it's all up to speculation with that. To kind of finish off the episode really quick, just so we can get into our
this
thoughts.
is the very final scene.
Very final scene shows Scully listening to Mulder's they're like therapist tapes of when Mulder was talking about his sister, and they were kind of going
you ever
over...
see a movie where like the therapist will be interviewing the subject, or not even interviewing, but like counseling the subject, and they'll always have a tape recorder like in the middle of the table, and they'll press record. This is kind of those tapes.
That's exactly what it is, and Mulder's kind of being, asked about his sister's abduction, how he feels about it.
I think it said like hypnotist on the tape, so it was like his hypnotic memories.
Yeah. He was trying to be, I guess, like put at ease as he's talking about it, or put to sleep, or whatever you want to call a hypnotist. But shows her listening to those tapes, and then it kind of pans out and shows Mulder sitting in a church, holding a picture of his sister and crying. He was just looking at it crying.
But there was one thing that the doctor asked him in the tapes that I thought was interesting. I believe he says something along the lines like, "Were you scared?" And he said, "No, I knew I should be, but I wasn't." And then the doctor asked, "Well, why wasn't you?" And he said, "Because the voices in my head told me not to be, and that my sister would be in no harm, and one day she would return." The doctor said, do you believe them? And he said, "I want to believe them." And and that scene actually gave me cold chills, bro.
Yeah, it's one of those quotes within the show.
Yeah.
I want to believe. You kind of hear that over and over. And something about his sister that I want to let all the listeners know. If you are following along with us or following along with the show, I mean, not even if you're on this episode, if you're caught up, there's a lot of things about Mulder's sister that you'll want to keep in mind. Not like keep on your mind as in keep it in your memory bank, but there's a lot of stuff even to this day that I'm still skeptical on with his sister. So that's one of the more interesting subplots of the X-Files, in my opinion, is the whole Mulder sister situation, because it gets brought up all the time. No matter if it's a Monster of the Week episode, I've heard it been brought up under. It's brought up all the time. So
and speaking of that, Kyle, it does seem like that, according to the Wikipedia page, that this is not a alien mythology arc episode. It's not part of the main story. It is considered a Monster of the Week episode, but I don't really feel that. I feel like this one is a character development episode and a little bit of the subplot of Mulder's sister, because it is peppered throughout the episode. And honestly, like, that is the stuff that I was eating up in this episode.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our thoughts. Like, what do you?
Okay,
I mean,
I'll
talk about that. What do you think?
Okay, so I did like the episode, but I didn't really like it for the story. Didn't really care about the whore in the town who was dating the guy and her friend after. Because I just felt like that story wasn't properly... I won't say properly, because it is a 40-minute TV show. I just feel like that it wasn't developed enough for me to really give any care about it at all. What I did care about, though, was the subplot of Mulder and his sister, because, to me, that was like the first real time where I was seeing, like, I knew that something happened to his sister, but to see, like, how much that it affected him, and you knew that he probably had based his whole career choices off of that incident, but to see it really, how it, pushed him there and affected him so much, I liked it. And like I said, I really liked that last scene, because it did give me cold chills. And I think that overall that really, like, did a lot in terms of character development for me to really be sympathetic for Mulder, and more than just his sister got hurt. Like, you actually got to see, like, how it affected him, instead of just someone telling you that it affected him.
Yeah. I mean, I actually really agree with you on that. Like, I feel like, in my opinion on this episode, I felt like this episode was very underwritten. Like, I felt like this episode was kind of, honestly, I'll just be completely honest, I felt like it was kind of poorly written. Like, I liked the subplot of the sister. Like, I always that's one of the things about the X-Files I've always loved, is like the unknown of the sister, which, you will see how that kind of develops. That is a subplot, and it is one of the main subplots of the X-Files when you go along with the linear storyline. But as far as this episode goes, I felt like this was like an unsolved mysteries type. Like these writers just were like, okay, we're going to talk about a girl who got supposedly abducted. Which, if you guys haven't found out at this point, she was pretty much abducted by aliens. I mean, that's pretty much, they found out at this point that she was abducted. Hey, this show's about aliens. We're going to come up with a girl that was abducted by aliens, have a bunch of deaths that are involved with her disappearance. But then she's going to just definitely, everybody's going to think she ran away, but she's definitely abducted by aliens. I felt like that this was kind of like just a poor storyline. I just didn't really dig it. I found
it was kind of weak. I'll agree with that. I mean, besides the subplots that both me and you did really like, the episode itself was kind of weak.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't definitely, and I kind of didn't talk good about Squeeze last week, but I really enjoyed Squeeze a lot more than I enjoyed this episode. I just thought that this was not very original. It felt like they took this from like an Unsolved Mysteries episode or just kind of some kind of a weird case, like a weird case episode. But I mean, overall, the thing that saved this episode was definitely the subplot of Mulder's sister and the character development. You're learning more about Mulder's backstory, Scully's backstory, how they feel about each other, how the FBI feels about them. So I mean, it wasn't like an all bad episode. I wouldn't give this a. I mean, if we were to rate this episode, we can start doing ratings if you guys like.
I would prefer not to do ratings on TV episodes because I would just have the hardest time.
Yeah,
but I think that we can keep it to this. We can say that it was a top tier level episode, a mid tier level episode, or a low tier level episode.
I would say this was a low tier, just because it didn't really. It was really kind of unnecessary. Like if I was to pick, and I've seen the whole first season, this would be one of the episodes I would probably pick that didn't really need to be made. I mean, even the subplot of the sister, it was cool to see it, but it
could have been anywhere.
Yeah, it could have been anywhere in any episode. They could have put it in Squeeze and it would have been fine. So yeah, I would say low tier episode. I will say this: I did like the acting in this episode, like the secondary actors, like Darlene. I really liked her acting in this episode. I thought she was very believable as a character because you get these TV shows like the X-Files where they throw randoms in and they're either really good or really shitty. I mean, you had Seth Green one episode. I really thought Darlene's character was really good, so I thought the character or the actors were really good in this episode. I will say that about it.
Okay, and me personally, I think that this was sort of a. I don't know if I want to say low tier because I don't really have anything to compare it to, but if I am just comparing it to the 3 previous episodes, I'm going to go ahead and say that this one was a mid-tier level episode because I thought it was very watchable. I was into it. I agree that the story was a little bit weak. I didn't like hate it or anything, or even I didn't even dislike it, and I wouldn't even really say that I wasn't interested in it. Maybe this is definitely not an episode I'd want to ever watch again in my lifetime, other than for the Mulder moments.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about tiers, kind of what I'm thinking about is, top tier. Obviously, in my opinion, the pilot was a top tier episode because it's the pilot. But I feel like the last 2 episodes were kind of mid-tier. This is a low tier for me just because it really had served no purpose. Like, I didn't hate it. I mean, it gave me enjoyment to watch it for the most part, but it wasn't really necessary for the main plot of the story as far as like, it kind of threw the sister stuff in there randomly that didn't really need to go there. Other than the fact that they were trying to compare it to the sister's disappearance in the episode, which really was kind of lame in my opinion, but I just considered it more of a low tier because it was just kind of a weak episode in my opinion. It just kind of didn't, like you said, I wouldn't go revisit this episode. I definitely revisit Squeeze or even Deep Throat, but this, probably not.
Yeah.
So
all right, so I think that kind of wraps it up, Kyle. I think that we're adding, as we're going along, I've noticed that we're kind of adding stuff with like the tiers, and we started talking a little bit more in the intro about what's going on besides the X-Files podcast. Started going into the ratings, the US viewers a little bit. So I think we're kind of finding our footing on this. I think that maybe I'd be curious to know if you guys would want us to maybe tighten up the actual description of the episode, or do you guys like it like that? I'm fine either way, but I just would like to know what you guys out there would think, because we weren't really sure how to do that, if we wanted to really just go through and talk about the whole episode, or if we wanted to talk more about our thoughts on the episode, or what we wanted to do. So we'll just keep adjusting to how we feel everybody would like us to do. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I really want people's opinions. I mean, I post these on my channel. I really would like to know, like, I really would like to know some of you guys who are listening. I mean, I would like, if this is on my channel, I want to hear, just drop me a comment, or even a message, like shoot me a message, or even a friend request on Facebook. I don't care. Let me know if you're listening, and let me know what you like about it, what you don't like. If you guys are listening on the 22 Shots page, leave us a comment on there once we post them on there. I would just like suggestions. Like JP said, we're kind of going over the full description of this episode in detail. If it needs to be tightened up or anything changed, I want to kind of focus on what you guys want, because I've always been a huge fan of this show. We're just kind of winging this and just talking about the full episode in detail. If you guys don't like that, or if you want us to clean that up a little bit, just shoot us a line. But I also do appreciate everybody that is listening. Even if you don't drop me a line, I appreciate you to keep listening. I encourage you to keep listening, and appreciate everybody that is. So,
yeah, absolutely, guys. I am enjoying this, and I look forward to doing another episode next week. And me and Kyle got a bunch of cool stuff planned for both the X-Files podcast and maybe some future projects. So keep looking at 22 shots of moodsandhorror.com, and Kyle's channel, which is the Horror File, my channel, which is Doubleshotj on YouTube, and of course horrorphilia.com. There's a new podcast probably going to be hitting Horrorphilia pretty soon. It's actually a buddy of mine named Brandon Orlack and a buddy of mine named Dave Z, Dave is actually from Banana Laser Podcast on Horrorphilia. They've actually just recorded their very first episode to a new podcast called Exploding Heads Horror Podcast, which I'm sure will be awesome. Not sure when it debuts, but keep on the lookout for that. As for us, I am JP. That is Kyle. We're done. We're through. We're out.